All right, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Tuesday night, March 7th, 2023. It's about 9:06 p.m. here along the West Coast in the state of California, where we got some more rain coming in, of course, and a lot more here in the next couple weeks. 1.6, the latest earthquake here into the area of Alaska. We did see some a little bit more moderate scale earthquake activity occurring just a short time ago. Taking a look here at the USGS map showing a 4.1 earthquake coming in about 8 o'clock or so this evening, 162 kilometers deep. We've been noticing a little bit of deeper earthquake movement up here along the Alaska area, inland into the Cook Inlet area. That is substantially kicking up movement across the subduction zone as noted here on the map. So watch this area for some potential larger scale activity. There's all that microquake activity stretching through the Cook Inlet up through Denali, and some of the activity across the Aleutian Trench here today. Early this morning, seen some activity right at the subduction zone level, 4.5, and also over here got a 3.4, and along with a couple other smaller microquakes across this area. So this region is definitely showing some heightened activity. We'll watch that closely. Across the Northern California area, now we did have a, make sure the bells are off. Just want to double check. I'm going to be doing that for a little while. We did have a 3.5, a 3.0, excuse me. I thought this was a 3.5 earlier. Well off the coast of Northern California into the Gorda Ridges. Now, this area sees a little bit of earthquake activity due to the movement out here amongst the Pacific and the Juan de Fuca plate. In this case, this is going to be the Gorda plate out here, a little small microquake or microplate out here, 10 kilometers deep. Potentially, that could add further strain out here amongst the Northern California area. Although we're not seeing it yet, I did see a little bit of activity kicking up out on the Dinsmore station there in Northern California earlier, but nothing showing up here on the USGS map. Let's take a look at the tremor map out here tonight and see what we have. 22 epicenters of tremor. Definitely not a big deal. Looks like around Salem, Oregon, and Northern California. That could explain a little bit of the activity out here amongst the Pacific and the Gorda Plate area. All right, the rest of Northern California looks fairly quiet for the most part. I mean, you got these typical areas around Clear Lake, which is very normal. No abnormal activity. If I were to see a swarm of 3s or 4s, I would call that abnormal. But generally speaking, we could see easily 50 to 100 earthquakes or so in the microquake department within this area on any given day. So this is very typical for that area. The Bay Area looks pretty quiet. Maybe a handful of small microquakes outside of San Jose. Down here along the Pinnacles area, a section of the San Andreas Fault from earlier, seen a 3.8, and a couple other smaller quakes there throughout the morning time period. Long Valley supervolcano over here. Not a whole lot. It looks like a couple small microquakes throughout the afternoon and early evening time period. Down into the Ridgecrest area, seeing some, looks like they've seen a 3 just earlier after midnight last night, along with a couple other smaller microquakes there following that 3-pointer. For the most part, I think if you were to talk about activity, it looks like Southern California appears to be the region of somewhat heightened earthquake activity, if you want to call it that. We did see a little bit of activity kicking up here along the Brawley seismic zone, which is basically the extensional plate boundary here off the San Andreas Fault. Stretches down into the Imperial Fault here. And looks like we've seen a couple earthquakes here within the last hour or so. Excuse me, just got hiccups all of a sudden. 1.0, 2.0. A little bit of variable depths there with those earthquakes. Not a swarm. Swarm would be definitely consistent of maybe at least 5 or 10 or more within a 24-hour period. But a little bit of activity kicking up here this evening around the Brawley area in Southern California. Also noticeable activity up here across the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, stretching across this region. Specifically along that plate boundary, there's nothing yet, but one day that's going to change. That's definitely a fact. We'll keep that at bay for now. 2.7 near Joshua Tree earlier this evening. That is just off of the Eureka Peak Fault. Eureka Peak. Actually never heard of it, so I'm kind of curious about it. Let's see what's going on there at the Eureka Peak Fault System. Let me go back up here and check it out. Eureka Peak Fault is a 20-kilometer long fault system. Definitely not any significant fault, but looks like a right lateral strike slip fault. Very typical for Southern California. Very low accumulated slip rate at 0.6 mm per year. The intervals between major ruptures is unknown. Looks like probable magnitudes between 5.5 and 6.8. Larger when it's combined with other faults, such as 1992. So it looks like the 1992 Landers rupture on the Eureka Fault seems to have occurred within two separate events. As I've said it before, Southern California is a spider web of very complex systems out here, very active faults, and there's numerous ones besides what's shown here on the USGS map. So there's a lot of activity kicking up out here. There's a lot of potential for sure. San Jacinto Fault Zone, fairly active today as well. We did see one earthquake 2.0 near Banning earlier this afternoon. That is just to the south of the San Andreas Fault there. So kind of keeping an eye on that area of Southern California. It's been fairly active today. We'll definitely watch it. Also, region here north of Las Vegas. This activity tells me that there's increasing activity out here along the west coast as noticed. Notice we're getting some activity stretching across the mountain ranges here of Utah as well, up into Yellowstone. So regionally as a whole, you got to look at this as a whole from a wider perspective. I know if you want to zoom in, we're way down in this little city here, or in Chico or Sacramento, wherever you're at. But as a plate tectonic view, regional activity is kicking up here across the west coast. Northwest of Las Vegas, obviously quite a bit of activity kicking up. All small microquakes, that's for sure, but got that continued movement up here against the mountain ranges here with a little bit of activity outside of the Ogden, Utah area. 2.7 near Morgan and a 1.2 earlier this afternoon within the same vicinity. Up into Yellowstone National Park, got 6 earthquakes here or so. Near the Hebgen Lake area, northwestern corner of Yellowstone National Park. Let's see what's going on out here. Haven't even looked at this yet. There we go. There's the earthquake activity, very obvious there across the northwest corner of the park. See these spikes? Those are the earthquakes in question. And there's not a whole lot. The largest one looks like a 1.7 and a 1.6. So what you're seeing on the map here is what you got. Definitely no larger earthquakes. If they were larger, they'd be showing up across a wide array of stations out here. And right now they're localized to this area, indicating some smaller quakes. Alrighty, what else we got here? Texas has been rocking and rolling as well, outside of Pecos to the west and to the south. Haven't really seen too much earthquake activity here south. I'm kind of curious to see what's out there. Oh, wouldn't you know? Wouldn't you know? Is it a UFO base? No, those aren't UFO bases out there. Those are probably alfalfa or hay. But I'm talking about these out here, these little square boxes. Those are a lot of oil fields out there, quite a bit. Fracking, wastewater injection, disposal facilities, high in quantity out here, that's for sure. And those 2 earthquakes struck within this area. Let's see what this one down south is. Looks like it's away from the area, 3.9 kilometers. Doesn't mean that there's not anything new popping off out here as far as a disposal facility. You know, drive off the main road, travel 20 or 30 miles, stick it in the ground 4 kilometers, nobody will know. You just never know. There's something going on out here. I'm not for sure what this is. This kind of looks like somebody that just wants to be away from society. I don't blame them. Put me out here, right? Goodness, that's pretty crazy. But hey, probably smart these days. Let's see. Eastern portion of the country, pretty quiet. Still got a pretty good swarm around the Puerto Rico area. Bunch of 2s and 3s. Still waiting on something to pop off here. But so far, just been sporadic activity. And let's see what we got here for the Earthquake 3D program across the area. Middle America Trench has toned down. South America region got a couple 3s popping off here within the last hour or two. But it looks as though the activity kind of working its way up into the North American plate and the Pacific plate boundary here. So got to watch this area on a large scale region. This is definitely showing some uptick. From Alaska down to the west coast. Into the New Zealand area, looks like a 4.1 coming in earlier. I don't see it showing up here on the map. I'm guessing that's from the USG or the EMSC model. EMSC, but I do want to check out GeoNet servers and see what's being reported 4 hours ago. I just don't understand why the USGS is not getting in on the game when it comes to earthquake reporting. There in New Zealand, it's above 4.0. It's above that threshold. They'll report a 2.9 in Chile, but when it comes to anything above 4 in New Zealand, it's like, nope, not going to do it. I don't know. It's weird. So it looks like a 4.3 4 hours ago, South Island, New Zealand, near Hanmer Springs, 7 kilometers deep. So to verify this data, make sure it's a legit earthquake, any geologist, seismologist is going to look at the graphs, right? So let's go look at the graphs here for the localized area and see what we got down there around the South Island, New Zealand area. The closest station looks like it's going to be right around potentially here or there, but pick any station. Right? Pick any station. Doesn't matter what station you're on. The signature is there. That earthquake showing up pretty nicely about 4 hours ago as listed on the GeoNet servers there for a 4.1 South Island, New Zealand. So a legit earthquake. Looking at the rest of the activity here across New Zealand, that looks like that's about it as far as any measurable earthquake activity, at least worth noting. Volcano activity here, volcano drums. This will give us an indicator of what's going on across volcanoes. There's the 4-pointer showing up on North Island stations, but you got to remember this is a ways away from the main epicenter of that 4.1, but it will show up on any seismograph station that's properly tuned. Taupo supervolcano clear as a bell, just barely picking up that 4-pointer in South Island, New Zealand area. But for the most part, things look pretty clear across New Zealand for now. All right, let's see what else we got here across the area. Pretty good uptick, of course, around the Papua New Guinea, Philippines area early this morning. But as you notice, most of this activity is from that time frame this morning. We've only seen a little bit of earthquake activity on the deeper scale department out here along Indonesia area early this afternoon. So that tells me right there, a teeter-totter effect, right? Kind of like a level of measurement when it comes to, well, where's the earthquake activity going to kick up? Is it going to be over here along the western Pacific plate or the eastern Pacific plate and adjacent plates? Right now, I think we're over here leaning towards the North American plate specifically with all the activity in Alaska and the obvious, look at that, there's a lot of obvious earthquake activity across a good portion of the North American plate here inland as well. Let's see here, outside of the well north of the Java Trench here, Andaman Sea area. Looks like a 4.9 coming in early this morning, but notice that's we're looking at the halting of earthquake activity out here. So when there's so much pressure built, well, got to look at it this way. If there's not enough strain built up for a large-scale movement and things are building, things come to a halt out here, so to speak. And that's when we notice earthquake activity back building here across eastern Pacific plate and up here along the regions and adjacent plates here in South America. But right now it looks as though most of the activity has been confined here to this area as far as uptick momentum goes. And in that case, there's a couple different scenarios. We could see a larger earthquake out here along the western Pacific that would relieve movement out here along the eastern Pacific. Got to remember the general plate movement here, and let's go ahead and kick that back up here. I should have it. I should have it out here. But the general plate movement shows the general direction of the continents here. And all of these have their own individual specific faults. This is just the major plate boundaries and the general direction of these continents here, the plates. Notice out here the northwestward movement here of the Pacific plate, inner grinding, so to speak, with the Eurasia plate, the Filipino plate, and the Australian plate. But right now this whole area has gone quiet, so we're looking at pressure building out here along the west coast and the North American area. Turkey region, and I think I'm getting a cold, folks. I don't know if I sound like an operator here on the microphone or not, but my nose has been running, and right now it's currently just kind of can't really breathe out of it. So probably picked it up from the kids. It never fails. The activity here in Turkey stopped around 6 o'clock this morning, mostly 4s. There is some smaller earthquake activity out here around the Turkey area, some 2s, and a more recent earthquake here looks like showing in right now as we speak, 2.5. And some other scattered earthquake activity out here across the Mediterranean. We did see a 4.8 in the divergent boundaries up here into the Atlantic Ocean earlier today. 4.6 it looks like near Colombia, if I'm correct. Let me see where that's at. 4.5, is that right? 4.5? No, I'm looking at something different down here. I'm talking about south of the 4.5. That earthquake not being reported by the USGS. Excuse me. Ecuador coming in at 04:25 UTC time, so that was about an hour or so ago. USGS on vacation. I don't know what's going on, guys, with the USGS lately. It's just sometimes they're quick on the ball, and sometimes they are not at all. But these source parameters have not been reviewed by seismologists here for that 4.6 in the area of Ecuador. All right, let's see what else do we have out here, folks. So yeah, keep an eye on, with the sudden pause of movement out here. I shouldn't say sudden because it kind of halted this morning. With this lack of activity further westward, these are the regions to watch here for some activity over the next 24 hours, unless we get a major breakthrough in earthquake activity across this region. Back building a pressure out here with the North American plate and the Pacific plate boundary. Notice that activity. All this movement here kind of stretching counterclockwise against the Pacific plate. North American plate up here in Alaska, all pointing towards these areas right here in the in this circle area. All right, let's see what else we got here. Space weather activity. Goodness. There's nothing like having a cold and trying to talk on the microphone. Goodness. We're currently in a blackout of the SDO data. It looks like notice no imagery coming in and a lack of data being picked up on that station. But looking at the current space weather solar sunspot activity, we do have a numerous amount of sunspots currently facing Earth. These up here on the northern end are deteriorating, and they are not looking likely at all. This one down here has deteriorated as well since this morning's update. I don't think we're going to see anything promising coming from this area. But this area down here looks like it has developed a little bit further in the complex structure of the magnetic field that it harbors. So we'll watch this area and potentially this region. I mean, it's degraded, but it still shows a little bit of complex structure there. 32 and 42, 3242 and 3245 for some possible flaring. Right now, these guys are saying a 95% chance for a C flare, 45% chance for M flare, X flare at 10% chance, and the main culprit, 3242, that harbors a beta delta class, has obviously, as I showed you, that was earlier, but a look at it today, it looks like it's deteriorating as we speak. What else do we have here for data? Aurora forecast looks like a little bit of unsettled conditions at the higher latitudes, but we're really not expecting anything too promising for the folks that like to watch the skies in the northern latitude areas. Only a minimal chance of space weather events up there over the next couple days. So hopefully we can get that to change here with a, who knows, major CME. I don't see it likely, though, for now. All right, weather activity, folks. I want to give you guys a quick glance here at our Northern California lake levels. And we're still kind of low. The main lakes that I think folks are kind of looking at is Oroville, right? Lake Oroville. That's the area that's seen that spillway crisis here a few years ago, I should say, where the auxiliary spillway was used because the main spillway was completely damaged and eroding away. That has since been fixed. This is the current lake level here at Lake Oroville. We are still 62.31 feet from the top. Current water level at 837 feet. It's got a little ways to go, but with the snow melt that's coming up and the significant atmospheric river that's aimed at California, this will definitely spike up. But I'm sure the folks there at the DWR is watching this pretty closely, and they will adjust the lake levels accordingly. Shasta Lake up to my north here is still, that's roughly about the same. 68 feet from the top at 998 feet current level. And it looks as though, obviously, we're well above the 2022-2021 era, which is good because, I'm not looking forward to my well drying out. I appreciate all the water. I'm not going to complain. I was mailing off a package here today at the post office, our local post office, and heard all the customers complaining about the rain, and even the postal workers. Yeah, I'm ready for summer. Can't wait for the rain to stop. And I'm thinking, really? I mean, water is life. We're just coming out of a drought here in Northern California, and people are complaining about getting rainfall. Don't worry, it's going to be 115 degrees here in June. So you can get out there and get your suntan and go to the lake. But I am not going to complain about the weather. We need the rainfall completely. I hope it pours. So yeah, lake levels here from the lakelevels.info site. There's quite a bit of information here when it comes to the lake level. So let's look at the forecast here across the western United States. We're still looking at a significant amount of precipitation coming in here. This is for tomorrow, still underneath the influence of some colder environment. But notice these two storm systems here. We got a low pressure system to the north, subtropical moisture coming up from the southwest. These are going to intertwine, and this is going to produce some pretty significant snowfall at first at the mid and higher elevations here in Northern California, and some significant rainfall for Northern Cal into the Sacramento and the Coast Range area. And after that, we are looking at a pattern of some warmer systems coming in with very high snow levels. Looks like that system there on the March 13th, March 14th time frame is going to be nothing but significant rain on top of accumulated snow at the elevations. They're probably below 7,000 feet. And that's going to enhance the risk here of some flooding concerns. That system on the 18th looks rather warm as well. And this is kind of a pattern that's going to be shifting towards Northern California here over the next week and a half, 2 weeks or so. Early this morning, this weather model was only going out to about the 20th time frame. So this is all news to me. We're seeing another significant storm impact the area much later in the month of March. So this could be a serious event. I know the National Weather Service right now is downplaying this, but my ground out here, Northern California ground, is saturated completely from top to bottom. And if we put on, let's see how much rainfall we're going to get out here. Okay, let's go back here so we can get the surprise. Precipitation accumulation, total accumulated precipitation from the GFS model here over the West Coast. And this goes out, let's see how far it goes out. This only goes out to about the March 19th time frame. So here in an hour or so, we'd be able to see these other forecasted levels. But all right, so we're looking at easily anywhere between 3 to 6 inches of rain in the Sacramento Valley, which is pretty impressive. Along the Coast Range here, we're looking at probably 10 inches or more. In the Sierra Nevada, we're talking about over a foot of rain on top of some snow. So this only goes to the 19th, and you've seen all the way until the 23rd, 24th that there's another couple significant systems here coming in. So, I'm not a fearmonger, but I look at weather models. We look at trends, we look at weather models, and we forecast weather based on these weather models. But the National Weather Service is they're kind of keeping everything, toned down. This isn't a significant impact, moderate impact expected, but everything's soaked. Everything is, there's a lot of snow in the mountains, and you put all this heavy rainfall on top of it. What's going to happen? There's going to be a lot of runoff. So already for my area, there is a flood watch for the Northern California area. It covers a good portion of Northern California below 4,000 feet, and that's due to the runoff of the snow melt. Flooding caused by excessive rainfall and snow melt is possible. But yeah, it already mentions everything that I discussed in here. So it's crazy. It's definitely a winter to put down in terms of records out here in Northern California for a La Nina. La Nina years are normally wetter systems up north, drier down south here, and it's been completely opposite. So that just confirms that folks' analysis here of typical patterns don't always hold true. No pattern is the same at all. And this is just proof of the weather anomalies that can take place in these odd situations here with the triple dip La Nina. Pretty crazy. There was a little bit of chat about, hold on a second, I seen this in chat earlier about a station going off here in event mode out here across the Pacific Ocean in, let's see here, let me show you guys here, off the coast of what's that town? Astoria. Couldn't think about that for a second. I've been up there numerous times, but it was just one of those events there. And looking at the event details, folks, this is a very microscope adjustment, and I'm not for sure why it even went into event mode. You got to think of these. These are meters out here. Look at the adjustment here in the red. We're talking about microscope level, maybe maybe, what is that, an inch? I'm thinking maybe a bird landed on it or who knows what. But for this thing to go in event mode, that in aspect is an error, a technical error with that buoy station out there. You got to think about that. If this thing was actually picking up a big wave, we would see a much larger reading there on the meter area. An inch, definitely not going to produce a tsunami out here. There we go. Second sign of a cold. Third sign of a cold, 2 sneezes. All right. Oh, man. Yes. Oh, goodness. I think a shot of NyQuil is in store tonight. Hopefully I feel better tomorrow. All right. I better get out of here before a third one comes. Too late. So, yeah, remember that, folks, when you're looking at buoys in event mode, look for the measurement adjustment. There was something wrong going on out here, an adjustment in the seafloor. Goodness, we would see, all right, who sprinkled pepper on my voodoo doll out there? We would be seeing adjustments across a wide array of buoy stations, but I don't know what it was. I think it's just maybe an error. So I'm just kind of pinpointing that out, folks. Pinpointing that out. We've seen that happen numerous times, but I've seen this show up on a couple disaster and natural disaster websites across Facebook and whatnot, and a little bit of fear-mongering going on. But I tell you what, when you look at the data, when you look at the factual data and the raw data, all that is just a very small microquake adjustment in event mode. It kind of triggered the buoy in event mode for some reason, so that tells me there's an error with this guy, whether it's a seagull or who knows what. But that is the culprit out there floating on the ocean that triggered a little bit of fear-mongering in some certain groups out there I'm not going to mention. All right, let's see here. I think that's about it. Trying to think if there's anything else here. Oh, goodness. Let's see. Nothing major going on across volcanoes. Got the daily Kilauea volcano update. I don't think there's been any major changes there in Hawaii. Looks like the same reading that we've been watching for quite a while. Although it looks like the summit eruption within the crater has paused. Lava is no longer flowing on the crater floor. Small ooze outs of lava were flowing sluggishly in the footprint of the inactive western lava lake. Yeah, it doesn't look like anything major in terms of eruptive activity goes there across the area. Alaskan Volcano Observatory, about the same as well. Looks like, what do we got here? Let me double check that. Trident Volcano Advisory in yellow. Small earthquakes in the vicinity of Trident Volcano continued to occur during the past 24 hours. That's been kind of it's been ongoing, right? We've noticed that here on the updates since about August 24th, 2022. Although nothing major going on there as far as eruptive status goes. Alrighty, folks, I'm going to jump off here. Hope everyone has a great night. Stay safe out there. And we'll definitely be back out here tomorrow. Of course, we got the member drawing coming up here in a week or so. Make sure you get in on that. But for now, keep an eye on West Coast, Alaska area, with the uptick in movement across the region. Stay safe out there. We will chat you guys very soon. Have a good one.